Okay, welcome back to Livewire. My name is Jared Moore with Mvskoke Media, and I'm being joined today in the studio by Paul McLennan and Fanta High with the Decolonize Decatur Committee of the Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights out of Decatur, Georgia. Thanks so much for joining us today, guys.
Thank you for having us, Jared.
Thank you, Jared.
And you guys are on the program because you are looking for an indigenous artist to do a piece to replace a Confederate monument that was taken down. Could you guys tell me the story of the takedown of the monument, and then we'll get into the artist requirements and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the work for the takedown of it was the Lost Cause Confederate Monument was a 30-foot obelisk statue that uplifted Confederate soldiers and the war that was fought to keep my ancestors enslaved, not about states' rights. And so the push for the removal of that monument was in 2017, and it involved Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights and a lot of other activist allies and other organizations. And so it was a long haul push. We came up against a lot of resistance, of course, and with the change of the law in Georgia, in which they doubled down on the removal of any of these Confederate monuments, as they also put protections on other statutes to even protect human rights leaders, statues of human rights leaders like Dr. King and others. It really put a halt to the work, because we had a short window before we knew that legislation was going to pass, and once it did, it really put a halt to the work, and things slowed down. But then with the uprising that took place with the Black Lives Matters movement, with the killing of innocent Black men and women, and what we saw in the rebellion of the summer of 2020, we got a new surge of energy and a push that allowed us to take down the monument, which was, again, the eve of Juneteenth. I don't know if you know the story, but I'll let Paul share some more about that.
Yeah, please.
Eve of Juneteenth in 2020.
So what we realized at that night, which was a celebration to bring that obelisk down, Fanta, we were talking about the cannon, which is only a few feet away, about why those two objects needed to be removed at the same time. But the focus was first on the obelisk, and then we spent the next year working on what we called the Genocide Cannon. And that cannon was placed in 1906, 2 years before the obelisk, by the same group, the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And its purpose was to memorialize the 1836, what they called Indian War, which was part of the genocidal process of white settlers driving the Mvskoke Nation out of Georgia. So in a similar way, it didn't take as long, and using the momentum to take down the monument transferred to the work on the cannon, and we were successful last October in removing that.
So you kind of touched on the history of the cannon there. What is the location of where the cannon was? What is it like? Is it a city park, or could you kind of talk about the physical location of it?
Yeah, Jared, it's actually downtown Decatur and what's known as the Square, right by the courthouse. And also situated right in front of, which is now the DeKalb County History Center, and formerly was the courthouse there, and that location has moved, but basically in the seat of power, right? Which we know that statues like the Lost Cause Confederate Monument and the cannon are intentionally placed in those kinds of places, right? Which people are going to see in large numbers, also to remind those individuals in which those weapons of war, such as the cannon or that Lost Cause Confederate Monument, was erected to celebrate, again, the oppression of my ancestors, to remind people, quote unquote, of their place, right? It's just another way to mentally oppress individuals. So the individuals who erected the UDC, they were very strategic in where they had it placed. We don't think it was a coincidence at all.
Right. And I just want to shout out to the audience. Anybody has a question, pop it into the chat. So with that in mind, the public artworks, could you talk a little bit about, what's the space like? What are you guys looking for from an Indigenous artist to fill that space? And I should mention too, before I forget, if you're an Indigenous artist and you're watching this program and you want to try to apply to do a work in this space, there's a link in the description of this video for the Art for the People website where they're taking submissions on there. There's an email on that website where you can submit to try to get your work exhibited here. But what are you guys looking for specifically in the artists and the work?
I want to mention one other thing, Jared, that I think it's really important. That's the focus of Decolonize Decatur's work, which is the connection between the Indigenous and the African, the connection in our stories based on what was done to our ancestors that brought us to this point where we are today, and also what also used to take place in the square, which is the KKK rallying in that square right now, right? That's situated now where that Lost Cause Confederate Monument was and where the cannon once was. And I think that really speaks to the story of oppression and also what this country was about and what they uplifted, that the KKK could freely rally in the square. So with the artists that would receive this commission, it's important that the work of art that they erect also recognizes the connection between the African and Indigenous story with stolen land coming from the Indigenous, but also as my ancestors being stolen people of African descent being forcibly made to come to this country to develop what is known as the plantation economy, which brought wealth to many families. And so as we look at this space now, it's not quite large. So ideally, it would be something like a statue that will go in that space because it's quite open where it's at. Mm-hmm. And in terms of any specifics for the vision, we've left that open. We would just want to have a conversation with our artists. We're just going to cast a large net for what the vision is and let them fill in the blanks.
Okay, great. And again, we've got some comments here. I'm just going to read some of the comments. This is from T.Y. Prole. He's a regular commenter on our channel. Mvskoke sculptor Paul Moore should do it for free as a penance for that expletive land run abomination he made in OKC. Thanks for that comment, Paul, or T.Y. Pro. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Paul Moore, the Mvskoke sculptor. He was involved in a project in OKC that was celebrating the land run. And I believe now that there's been a push to have a monument across the street from that monument that's going to try to tell the native side of that story. So that's an ongoing problem with the sculpting of history by the powers that that be to try to distort things. But with that being said, again, if you're an artist, you're watching this program, you want to apply for this, how much is the commission, or is it going to be based on the work? How is that going to work from you guys' standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can tell you to date, we've raised approximately $14,000 in just 2 months. And we've also applied for a grant that would be, if we got that, another 25 grand. So we're thinking it's going to be fairly sizable once we're done with our fundraising. Awesome.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on the program for sure. And everybody out there in Oklahoma, you guys stay safe with the weather the way that it is. One of the interesting things that I think about this whole project that you guys have done, and I guess I should mention, is this the only monument that you guys have taken down, or is this like a succession of things? Like, what other projects have you done?
So this is the first project, which is what Sonia said, that went up in response to the Lost Cause Confederate Monument that I spoke about, that 30-foot obelisk that celebrated the Confederacy or the Confederate soldiers in that war. So what Sonia said, and it actually did not go up in that same location that the Confederate Monument came down, but we actually placed it within the Beacon Hill community, which we believe is sacred land. Beacon Hill community was started by freed African slaves after the Civil War. And the Beacon Hill community also experienced dispossession of land, as that land was stolen from them. Toxic waste was placed on that land where Black children have played, and communities were established and torn apart, and families torn apart. So we placed intentionally what Sonia said in a certain lot of land. That's also where segregated elementary and high school, Black high school, used to be. And so in talking about where this second art installation would go in response to our removal of the cannon, it may not necessarily go right in the place of the cannon. We'll be very intentional and thoughtful about where we place it, because that's also part of our storytelling. The land is very much connected to our ancestors, and how we tell the story and what we erect next will be our decision.
In the process of looking for the indigenous artist to fill this slot, or multiple slots over time, have you guys reached out to tribal governments? And if you have, what's the response been from tribal groups when you contact them?
Yeah, the Mvskoke government was the first group that we had a successful connection with, and I'll let Paul say more about that.
Well, one person who's been instrumental in this work is a Mvskoke elder who lives in Georgia and relates to part of the nation that lives or is based in southern Alabama. That's who he relates to. His name is John Winterhawk, and he made compelling testimony to the Decatur City Commission the night that students, high school seniors, presented a resolution for removal, and he gave testimony, gave comment. So we've been guided locally by people like him, and we're really just getting started speaking with you, and really appreciative of this connection, and we want it to grow. This is not just about finding an artist. We want to have a conversation, a dialogue. We had a meeting this week of our reparations committee. We're really using Art for the People as a way to talk about all this history and how relevant it still is, because colonization and dispossession never stopped. It's still going on today.
Absolutely.
It's just important, Jared, that we can tell our story, Native people and African people. So even as I think about the name of the cannon, which we renamed the Genocide Cannon, named it intentionally again for what it is, but it was put in place to celebrate the quote-unquote Indian Wars of 1836, when really it was Native people that were warred upon. But again, we have to be the ones who are telling that story, right? And telling it in the way that we know to be true. And so as we invite whoever that artist is into this work with us who received the commission, when I say we decide where that land is, that the art will be placed, that's got to be a part of a conversation we have jointly, Native and African people together, because this is our story.
Right. We've had a couple of comments here. I just wanted to mention one from John Howard. He says, "Everyone watching, please like this live feed." So thanks, John, for posting that, and go ahead and like it. You know, we're not a monetized channel or anything like that, but it will help push everybody to get this video suggested to you. And then you guys, you might mention a little bit about the Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights and the committee itself too. Who's on the committee? You know, like how did that organization get formed and started?
Yeah, we started. Thank you for that question, Jared. In 2015, and again, we haven't even been around that long. 2015, barely 7 years. But it was just a small group of concerned Black parents who were concerned about their children's education, because they didn't think they were receiving an equitable education in a community that's been gentrified, that experienced redlining, again, the dispossession of land as Black families have been pushed out. So now it's a largely white community, and a largely affluent white community, and their children were not only not getting an equitable education, but their children being disproportionately disciplined as well. And so these parents came together to deal with those issues in education. And from there it grew, because we know as we talk about colonization, that impact doesn't happen in just one segment of our life or society. So then there's the issue within criminal justice and the issue with housing. So the organization grew from looking at all these issues of inequity and became the Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights when we could not establish ourselves as an NAACP chapter, which we attempted to do. So we established ourselves under our own name.
I see. We've had another comment here from T.Y. Prohl, and I just wanted to mention it to you because what he says is, or they say, I don't know who it is, but they say, help us to get the Tulsa Association of Pioneers Klan Trophy Monument in Tulsa's Owen Park removed. So if you guys are interested in that, and T.Y. Prohl, if you want to, send me some contact information through YouTube, and I can pass it on and see if the Decolonize Decatur is interested in trying to organize or help with you guys if you guys are going to have a march or something like that, and let us know, obviously. So it's very interesting that we're seeing all this stuff happen. At the same time, I know you're mentioning the obelisk and those pushes. We're seeing the same type of things happening in Oklahoma with the trying to limit what from Native American history in the state it can even be taught in schools through legislation and things. It's kind of disturbing things are happening. But with the McGirt decision, hopefully, and this is just me spitballing, but I'd like to see the tribes' involvement in the public education system increased because of the expanded reservation jurisdiction or the affirmation of the reservation jurisdiction. So we'll see what can happen with there as far as schools or tribes funding schools themselves and things like that. And that way maybe we can get around some of the state prohibitions of what's taught and how it's taught. But thanks again for coming on the program, you guys. We are at about 16 minutes here. So if you got any more questions, everybody out in the chat, for the individuals here or myself, just pop them into the chat. Is there any aspect of this that you guys think is important to talk about that we haven't talked about?
I feel like there's so much more we could say, Jarrett. I know I have a couple more comments, but I'm going to let Paul speak for a moment.
Sure.
Because I saw there's something that was like burning for him to share.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the school curriculum issue because we're involved in a coalition here called K16 Teach Truth. And one way or the other, whatever these state governments try to do, we are going to get the truth out to our young people. And one of the most powerful events that we had with the Cannon was a teach-in where local teachers and historians conducted a public classroom right there at the Cannon, educating people about an object that really had been hidden in plain sight for more than 100 years, 115 years. So this issue of the story of this country as a settler colony and what really happened has to be told. Mm-hmm. And as Fanta said, this indigenous African connection is at the root of the violence that happened, that started this country that we still see today. That violence and that colonization continues, and we have to address it.
And this is how, Jared, we became the Decolonize Decatur Committee, because at one point we were the Confederate Monument Removal Committee, and that was so limited and so short-sighted. One of the things that we know is that colonization is ongoing, and we're seeing the attack on education, which is just another example of that. And so we learned that our success in the work that we have done with removing these statues has come from the community education we've done, right, to decolonize mindsets, to then do the further work of decolonizing our community. But it starts with that, decolonizing the mindset. So that was largely why we changed our name to what we did. And so now we're working throughout the community to make change wherever we can, in education or otherwise.
Well, I think it's great work, and I also want to personally thank you guys for all the work that you're doing. It has a lot of impact for natives down here to see that there are organizations and groups of people that care about Native Americans, that they are not a member of a tribe or anything like that. They just have a relational history, and also they see an injustice and they're trying to fix it. So it's really great to see that. We've had another comment here. Let me take a look. John Howard says, who should decide what truth is taught to our children on the Oklahoma reservations? And that's a, well, hold on, let me pop my time warning popped up. Whoa! Sorry, guys. Some technical difficulties. There we go. Okay, we're back. That's a question that's out there, that because of the Supreme Court ruling, we've really seen a change in the perception of how things are done, because now the tribes have to be considered in a lot of things that they weren't even considered in before in Oklahoma. And so that's the thing is, I don't know, one of the things we've tried to do, and I was talking to Paul before we started the program, we had a television program for many years, and one of the things we tried to highlight, apart from what actual Mvskoke citizens look like today and what they do, is how much money the tribal governments put into the communities here by paving roads and donating to local school programs and all types of things. And part of that is because of how the casino revenues for each tribe have to be dispersed into the community, whether if they don't do, which they don't do a lot in Oklahoma, is the per capita distribution. They have to do public works and things like that. So there are a lot of citizens of Oklahoma who maybe they aren't Native American. They don't know anything really about the history other than what they've been taught in school, which is not very much. But they're benefiting from all of these things that the tribe does, and they don't really know about it because it's not something that's publicized a lot. So when we started doing our television program years ago and our newspaper, that's one of the things, is to highlight those things, to say, hey, the tribe built this town's water tower and so on and so forth, to try to get that out there, so that, because now you see a lot of the narrative of that the McGirt decision is going to cause chaos and all that stuff, when in reality there's not really that much that has changed, and all of the problems could easily be worked out over time. So, but I do appreciate you guys coming on the program, and we are at 22 minutes. Is there anything else that maybe we haven't mentioned that you guys think is important about this project?
I just want to stress for any professional artists who are interested in this project to please go to beaconhillblackalliance.org and click on Art for the People. And you can learn more about Beacon Hill Black Alliance and learn more about Art for the People. And you'll also see my contact information, which is transformation88.3@gmail. And you can email me if you're interested in this project. Again, transformation88.3@gmail.
Yeah. And for the audience also, that link is in the description of this video. So just scroll on down there and you'll go straight to the website too. How about you, Paul? Do you have anything else?
One thing I wanted to stress about Beacon Hill being a Black-led organization is that we believe that those most affected must lead. And that's the conversation that we want to have, where we center these experiences of people who have experienced the oppression in this country, that they have the wisdom and they have the lessons that we need that can free all of us. And it's going back to these stories, the original history, that can help us figure out a way forward, really to save the planet, because we are so, the rupture in the relationship with Mother Earth, and all that we need to learn from indigenous people about how to have the right relationship with Mother Earth. If we don't make some drastic changes soon, we're in crisis right now.
Right. And I would also like to mention too, we were talking about the education aspects. The tribe here has an education department, and we have a language department and stuff, and they regularly travel to schools and things in Oklahoma to give educational talks and things, just like what you guys were talking about with the monument. So I know you guys are in contact with the tribal government here about the art project, but that's also something too. You could say, hey, you know, could you guys give me the contact for the education department and everything? Because they're all constantly doing all types of things like grant work and constructing syllabus or education syllabuses and things like that. So it might be a good resource for you guys to reach out to. T.Y. Pearl says, reach out to the Center for Public Secrets in Tulsa about this. Public Secrets, is that right, T.Y. Pearl? I don't know if that's a typo but I haven't heard of that one. But that's he's sending that out to you guys. Let me go through the comments here because we're about at our wrap time. John Howard says, Mado for bringing awareness to this canon and monuments in Decatur. Enoch Kelly Haney is an artist who may consider creating a design. So there's another name drop. And I would also say, you know, T.Y. Pearl says, also reach out to the Greater Tulsa Area Indian Affairs Committee. Absolutely. That would be a good contact for you guys. Thank you. There's an artist that's based in I think he's still based in downtown Tulsa on his resident artist status, which is what's his name? Gattaca Starfields is down there. He is in, I can't remember the name of the gallery in downtown Tulsa. I think he's still down there, so he would be a good person to contact. I don't think he does. I don't know if he does sculptures. He's a mural guy. But if you guys get to a situation where you haven't had any submissions or anything, you know, like shoot me an email. I'll try to give you some more contact information. And then also, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you know, don't be afraid to subscribe to our channel. And you can also go back, and we have on our channel a playlist that is called From the Vault. That is a lot of documentary style programs that have been done all through the years from the 70s on up until now. We also have on there documentaries that we've found about specific Creek and Native American artists. Sometimes they're Cherokee. You guys could also go through there and see if you could find some of those guys that are on there. There's 2 or 3 of them. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap today. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it again, and I hope you guys have more success in your struggles, and contact me if anything further happens. And then everybody in the chat, thanks for tuning in today. I don't know when our next live stream or next live wire is going to be. I've got a few things up in the air that I'm trying to schedule. And we were going to do a live wire on the impeachment, but it looks like, if you haven't seen any of our previous coverage, it looks like former Representative Travis Scott there have been criminal charges finally filed on him, so we're going to be following that when the court case comes up. We don't have a court date yet on it. So, but thanks so much, guys, and that's going to be it, and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you, Jared.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Jared.